Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Today's question goes like this. We were recently talking about Ramana's teachings representing a condensation of the essence of traditional Advaita Vedanta. But couldn't there be important aspects of traditional Advaita Vedanta that should be learned in order to understand more deeply the very essence of Ramana's teachings? What do you think of that?
Not necessarily. In a way, if we have never studied Advaita Vedanta and we come fresh to study Bhagavan's teachings, if we study them deeply and put them into practice, we will understand them more clearly, or it will be easier for us to understand them. But if our mind is already soaked in a lot of old ideas, Bhagavan's approach, Bhagavan's way of expressing it is very new and very fresh. And as I was saying in the previous video, Bhagavan has revealed many unique and extremely important principles, like this principle that the nature of ego is to attend to things other than itself. So long as we attend to anything other than ourselves, we are feeding and nourishing ego. Whereas if ego turns it, if we as ego turn our attention back towards ourselves, we begin to subside and dissolve back into our source. So this is one of the principles. You won't find that stated so clearly and explicitly anywhere in any of the old ancient texts. Bhagavan has made this uniquely clear. Bhagavan has also, he has distilled the very essence of Advaita and expressed it in an extremely simple way. But the simpler the expression of Advaita, the closer to the truth it is. Because what is the simplest state of all? If you've got two, you get complexity. If you've got three, more complexity, four, more complexity. Advaita means not two, non-two-ness. So there's no second. One of the fundamental principles of Advaita is expressed in one of the Upanishads, ekam eva advaitiyam. That means one only without a second. That is the nature of the reality. There is only one, no second. There's nothing other than that. So that is the state. The state where there is only one is the state of perfect simplicity. So the simpler the expression of Advaita, the closer it is to the actual truth of Advaita. One of the reasons why there's a lot of complexity in old texts, if we study them, is that many people are not ready to give up old ideas and beliefs. So the more Advaita tries to accommodate already existing beliefs, the more complicated it becomes. Like there are many Advaitins in the past and present who are not ready to accept that this world is just a dream. They say, oh, it may be like a dream, but it's not actually a dream. And there are places in the Upanishads and in the commentaries on the Upanishad where it is explained that differences between waking and dream. In waking state, you take the gross body as I. In dream, it's a subtle body. Okay, from whose perspective? While we're dreaming, we don't say, oh, I've got a subtle body. Our body seems material, gross, perfectly physical, so long as we're dreaming. So all these are, in order to accommodate people's beliefs, more and more complicated explanations are given. But Bhagavan always preferred, first of all, to give the simplest explanations. If people were not ready to accept the simpler explanation, then he would go to more diluted. So even if we read books like talks or any conversations with Bhagavan, we find there are many different levels at which Bhagavan is talking, because he's talking what is appropriate to the person who is asking the questions. Often you will see Bhagavan will first try and turn that person back towards themselves. He'll first start off with the highest teaching. Then if they're not ready to accept that, he'll dilute a little bit more, dilute a little bit more. This is to suit their willingness to grasp the truth. So it's not a wrong thing, but so many different levels of explanation are given there. There's a good reason why in all sages, whether Bhagavan or Shankara or Gaudapada or any sage, will tailor the teachings according to the needs of the individual. But in Bhagavan's core works, in works like Nana, who am I? He wrote it was originally questions and answers, but Bhagavan later formed into an essay. But those questions were all asked by Shiva Prakashan Pillai, who was such a ripe and fitting disciple. But the first question he asked Bhagavan is, Swami, who am I? He had no idea that Bhagavan had come just to reveal this path of self-investigation to the world, but he asked the most appropriate question. So that shows how well he was attuned to the guru he was approaching. Other works like Uludunapadu, Upadeshundya, Anma-vidya, these were written by Bhagavan at the request of Murugana, who was likewise completely attuned to Bhagavan. So for Shiva Prakashan Pillai and Murugana, Bhagavan didn't have to dilute things, because they were ready to accept whatever he said. So he was able to express the truth in the purest and simplest form. For others who weren't ready to accept that, he made it more complicated. So if we read, it's like saying that it's beneficial to read traditional Advaita Vedanta before reading Bhagavan. It's like it's saying it's better to read talks first and then to read Who Am I? If we read talks before Who Am I, it won't be very clear to us. Okay, Bhagavan taught self-inquiry, but he also taught so many other things. We'll be in a bit of confusion. Whereas if we first carefully study Who Am I, Nana, we will get the basic essence of Bhagavan teaching. Then when we read talks, we'll say, oh yes, this is his main teaching, this is something diluted. We'll be able to distinguish why he spoke like in one way to some people and another way to another person. And another problem in a lot of these dialogues, particularly in talks, is the person who recorded himself didn't have such a deep understanding of Bhagavan's teachings. So if I hear you having a conversation with someone, I can only record to the extent that I understand. If I remember, if I'm recording from memory, I will remember only what I understood. So if you're talking some subject that I've got a very poor understanding of, or very limited understanding, or got a lot of ideas, confused ideas, having read a lot of books, I will understand what you say, not perfectly. So when I record it, I will be recording what I understood, not what you actually said. So a lot of these books, like talks, they are, firstly, Bhagavan, they're recording conversations that Bhagavan had with people at different levels of spiritual development. So Bhagavan often diluted his teachings, and the people who recorded them often didn't have such a deep understanding. So they recorded only what they understood of what Bhagavan said. So if you read talks first, you're likely to get more confused. If you first read Who Am I, Who Am I, Uludunapadu, and such work, first understand the basic principles of Bhagavan teaching. Then we can read books like talks, and we can find nice things here and there. I'm going to understand a lot of it is, Bhagavan just said it. Likewise, having studied Bhagavan teachings, and studying means not just reading and thinking about it, putting it into practice, because we cannot understand Bhagavan's teachings correctly merely by reading. We have to put it into practice, because it's only from practice that we will get the clarity required to understand them deeply. So if we study Bhagavan's teachings deeply, and then we read other older texts, then we'll be able to understand where the truth is being diluted, where in some cases, some commentaries are written according to certain things. Sometimes some of the people who wrote commentaries may just have been scholars. They may not actually have been practical people. So some of the commentaries may not, just because a commentary has been there for hundreds of years, doesn't necessarily mean it's a correct commentary. So we'll be able to read with discrimination. But if you've just eaten the tastiest meal in the world, and then someone gives you some very plain food, you're fully satisfied with the meal. You won't want to eat the plain food. It's like that. If we really tasted the uniqueness of Bhagavan's teachings, if we really understood what is special about Bhagavan's teachings, all these old texts will seem like very tasteless food for us. Okay, it's interesting sometimes to read. It's interesting to hear how other people understand these things, but it won't help us much in our sadhana. If we want for our spiritual practice, Bhagavan's teachings are more than sufficient. We don't have to read anything else. Yes. We just by reading and fully imbibing the meaning of a few of Bhagavan's works, we will have a better understanding of traditional Advaita Vedanta than the so-called traditional Advaita Vedantins.